Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Spitballin' podcast. We are your hosts Haris Amjad and Ayush Yadav.
In this episode, we talk about if you can separate the art from the artist.
Okay, so we got the idea for this episode when we saw the news of James Gunn being rehired to Disney for the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And that triggered some philosophical part of our brains where we thought
Yeah.
that can we truly ever separate the art from the artist? And
There's a
is
lot going on in today's age that we have to talk about in order to understand this situation.
Yeah, I
Like,
agree. But I mean, everywhere, what do you do if the art you created was created by a monster? That's
yeah,
the fundamental question. And we know that this is a really philosophical debate, and yes, this is going to be a really philosophical episode, and we might not even reach to a conclusion at the end of it. But we're open to any suggestions or any
yeah.
of your views about it as well. So hit back in the comments, tell us what you think about the whole idea. We're actually keen to know your viewpoints
Yeah.
as well.
So I guess we should start with James Gunn.
Yeah. So this James Gunn, if for those who don't know, was the writer and director on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. But
He was fired because of the tweets he posted in between 2008 and 2012 that were really that was basically making fun of serious topics like rape, child abuse, and pedophilia.
pedophilia,
Yeah.
yeah. And and then the whole cast and crew of what you call Guardians of the Galaxy 3, whole
Yeah.
cast and crew of Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and as well as all over the industry, he received a lot of support, which is quite unusual for a person in such a situation. And then he got rehired to Disney. So that triggered off the debate, and then we see people like Harvey Weinstein, Johnny Depp, and I mean, there's so many rappers we can't even name them. That all of them are engaged in one or the other antisocial or act, and some of them for sexual harassments, possession of gun, drug abuse. So
So to basically get to the answer of the question, can you really answer the question right now? That can you separate the art from the artist? In your opinion, what do you think?
in my opinion, ideally, if I'm a critic, I should be able to separate the art from the artist. Like, if I'm a judge on, let's say, suppose an award show or something, then I should be able to separate the art from the artist. That is
Yeah.
my professional, yeah, that would be my professional skill, that I need to judge the art on its own merit rather than judging the person as a whole. But when you're talking about consumers or people, then it's really difficult to separate the art from the artist, because
Yeah.
if we go down to the root definition of art, art is a form of expression that is meant for admiration or for bringing
Yeah.
about an emotional response. So when we talk about things like that, in a sense, the artist is expressing himself through some form of medium. So for some it is movies, for some it is paintings, for some it is music. And in that process, you're trying to sell or project your own persona on the art. So if your persona includes stuff like sexual harassment,
Yeah.
pedophilia, child molestation, drugs, rape, stuff like
Yeah.
that, you get the point. If that includes that, then in some form or way, it will affect your art irreparably.
So for me, basically, I think that there are two aspects to everything, and in this scenario, also, you can there are very different cases. Like if you take the case of James Gunn, he tweeted something in 2008 and 2012, and there's a statute of limitations to everything, right? So I think it was right to forgive him and allow him to continue his work. And people who are saying that we won't watch his film because he did this, they also have the right because they think that it would affect their state of mind too in some ways, that they would not be able to consider the movie just for what it is and see that this guy made it, the who can joke about things. And they also, like, movies and other forms of art are very influential too.
Yes, I agree with you. Like, it was kind of right for the studio to reappoint him, but uh,
Like, we are not saying that it's not severe, but it was an old thing and people can change something.
yeah, like yeah, and that's the point. Like James Gunn, after he got fired, he laid out an apology. He
Hmm.
truly respected the studio's decision. He said that I respect it, and I know the things that I said in the past were bad, and I've apologized for my humor as well. And he says that I am a different person now, and I want to root my work more in love rather than
Yeah.
in aggression. And that is reflected in his movies. If you watch
Hmm.
his movies from like the first and then progress on,
Hmm.
you will see the difference. And so like not everyone is willing to change themselves and like
Hmm.
agree that there is something wrong with the way they behave or the way they've been behaving. Yeah.
You know, that reminds me of the whole situation with Kevin Hart. He was appointed as the Oscar host for this year, and then he was fired. And it's because of some tweets he made 10 years ago. And there are people who, if you are succeeding and if you are doing good for yourself, want your past to hurt you. Basically, they dig your past to hurt you. And he made some comments about the LGBT community. Somebody resurfaced it, and he was fired because of that. And it's been 10 years, and he's a completely different person right now. And Ellen DeGeneres, she supported him being gay herself. That was also something very important, and he was still not hired because of what he did, and it was quite unfortunate. So there are cases that lead you to sometimes empathize for these people who have made mistakes in the past but are now trying to genuinely change.
Yeah, I agree that people are or can change,
Hmm.
and there's some people who've shown us this, like
Yeah.
even people who reform their attitudes and behaviors
Hmm.
completely. But I still feel like the person's past is not completely disconnected from his present, and yes, they should be held accountable for their past because
Hmm.
they're people, and being in the spotlight, they're like influence a lot of other people, and that should be like there should be a standard for them that you should
Hmm.
not do this. This is not ethical. And I get it that it is not something or that is a restriction on the liberty and stuff,
Yeah.
but that's the world we live
Like,
in.
they should be held accountable. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be held accountable, but there's a level to the accountability, right? Like, there are states that if you don't forgive someone even after they have been tried and they have been forgiven by the court of justice or whatever. So I don't think that's right. I definitely don't think that you can judge the art from the artist, right? And because, like, in situations like when someone creates a really fucked up movie, so that doesn't necessarily mean that the person is messed up in their head. Like Anurag Kashyap, I think he's a pretty chill guy, but the movies he makes is very messy, and especially movies like Ugly. Like, they had a kid kidnapped, and what, like, the story is very weird in that movie. So that doesn't necessarily mean that if you can create, when you cannot judge the artist from the art, how can you judge the art from the artist?
That is like a really good point. But like to break it down, like I'd studied this in my psychology recently, that what happens is that this is a classic case of what a phenomena called cognitive dissonance, which was proposed by Leon Festinger. So in cognitive dissonance, the basic theory is that our thinking should be or our attitudes should be in line or should be consonant basically. They should be in, that is, they should be in line with one another. So it can be like I don't like Ayush, I am starting a podcast with Ayush. So because these two ideas or thoughts are dissonant, like they're in the opposite direction, that is why a person starts to feel uncomfortable.
Hmm.
So that is the basic thing that it boils down
Yeah.
to. Like people who feel like they cannot watch, suppose Johnny Depp's movie after he like had that a domestic assault case against him. They felt like we like Johnny Depp. He's
We
a
liked
brilliant
before the whole case came
yeah,
out.
yeah. We like his movies, we like
Yeah.
his acting, but he assaults women.
Hmm.
So that is like a dissonant and like
Yeah.
a dissonance, and that is what causes the uncomfortable feelings in the people. So like there is no denying the fact that Johnny Depp is a great artist. He'll create beautiful art still, like even further on in his career, he'll create beautiful art. But that opposite thought is what causes that uncomfortable feeling, and as a consumer you have the right to like not associate yourself with that.
Yeah, I think that it's true that like the opposite thought or the confusion caused by a person's internal life and what he portrays himself to be can be something that really bothers people and can be something that makes people to ignore someone. Like there's a line between those two, I understand, and that's where I think Kevin Spacey was really wrong. For those of you who don't know, Kevin Spacey was basically cast in
House of Cards.
yeah.
Netflix House of Cards, and he
Yeah.
was like a Broadway actor as well.
Yeah, he was a pretty good actor, and then he got
I
into
mean,
some.
pretty good isn't like an
Yeah.
understatement. He was an amazing actor.
Yeah, as an actor, he was amazing, and but now when I watch him, even I am for someone who is defending the artist right now, I also feel that why the fuck is this guy on my screen or something like that? Because he was in cases like pedophilia, and after being in that case, he first came out as openly gay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then he said like I'll come back, and
Yeah.
like
And
he
the
showed
video,
no
that
form
the
of
creepy video he made in the House of Cards form, that was very weird. We'll link it down in the description. It's pretty weird. You'll have to check it out to know.
and yeah, like that's the difference between James Gunn and him. For like if you're comparing cases, that's like he did not show any form of
Yeah.
reprehension. I think that's the word, right? They didn't show any form of reprehension, whereas James Gunn showed that he's willing to change
He's
himself.
apologetic.
Yeah, and what Kevin Spacey's like responses were trying to like get away with the problem rather than change himself to solve the problem.
There are two extremes in this case, and we all need to find a middle ground. So, like, these cases are there that the artist did something wrong, or there are some cases that the art is something that you don't like. So, you cannot judge each other. But in cases like where the artist makes really good stuff, but he did some pretty bad stuff like Triple X Tentasio. Like he was tried for several cases, and he was killed. And there are people who cannot find the middle ground. They're either like he deserved to die, or there are people like he did nothing wrong. So we need to find a middle ground where like we understand that he did something wrong, but nobody deserves to die like that.
Agreed.
Yeah, so there are some cases that there are statute of limitations, like in James Gunn or Kevin Hart's case. And if you're unapologetic, like Kevin Spacey is just unapologetic, and he's like, I did nothing wrong. When there's hard proof that
there's like 10-15 cases against him, like, and all teenage boys and stuff. Not to go into the details, but you can check it on the internet and see the video and like see for yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, like this entire issue, because it's so philosophical and it can't be like defined in pure concrete terms. Every case is different and there are blurry lines in every case. So yeah, and it's especially more trickier in industries like music.
Yeah.
Where the person like suppose like in acting or filmmaking, you can still get away with it because you're portraying someone else. But in music, you're just portraying yourself,
Yeah.
and your music has to be authentic. And see, like the
I guess.
music industry is also like had pretty fucked up
Hmm.
cases.
Yeah.
So
Like you were talking about Tupac and
yeah, like all of them, like
yeah.
a lot of them, like Snoop Dogg has been held for possession of drugs so many times.
Yeah.
Like that's
He's unapologetic at that point.
apologetic. Yeah,
He's
he like talks about it openly, and that's fine. But I mean, when you're in a situation when you're being watched by millions and millions of teenagers,
are
vulnerable
being
young
influenced.
people,
Yeah.
yeah, they're being influenced by you.
Like Triple X and Dasim, like we both love his songs and we
Yeah,
appreciate his
he's
art.
like
Yeah.
his songs are like really touching, and like even though he talks about
Yeah.
really deep and dark topics mostly, it's you feel him.
Yeah. I feel like he was really apologetic for what he did, and like his growing up years and all that also affected how he was, and like it was normal where he lived for at least for what he said, that stabbing people in his area was a necessity. Like that's how he justified it, and I really think that he grew better, and that's all really good. But he was still in some criminal cases very recently, so I don't really know where I'm getting at this point. But I just think that there are cases where you can change, and there are cases where people have changed, and that because you hated someone for what he did like 10, 15, or even 2 or 3 years ago, that doesn't mean he's the same person. And I know that he needs to be held accountable, but sometimes you're no one to judge a person by what either he did or he makes.
Yeah, so like it eventually like boils down to you. If you are okay with it, you can like enjoy the art of
Yeah.
a murderer, or like anyone who's not ethical, let's say. Like you enjoy their art, it's okay with you, that's fine. You're just limiting yourself to the art, that's fine. But when it turns to a point when you're getting influenced by his person as well, so then that's where the trouble lies, and that's where you have to separate the art from the artist. Or
Yeah.
if like you feel that you cannot consume the art without like thinking
Being
about the
influenced
person,
about-
and
yeah.
and being like unsettled or emotionally troubled, then you should not, and that's up to you.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine to boycott someone because for your own personal reasons. Getting to the other aspect of this whole situation, last episode we talked about the whole MCU being feminist or basically politically correct, and like there are games like The Last of Us where people have been like they're being so politically correct that it's being affecting their art. So I think that in some ways that is also wrong, that you cannot compromise on your art because you have to be politically correct all the time.
Yeah,
I don't think if doesn't affect how good the story is or what you're making, if that involves it, it's perfectly fine. But you don't have to go out of the way to do it. In either case, like you don't have to go out of the way to tweet something bad about someone, or
and you have to like also give artists the creative freedom to
Yeah.
do their thing. Like if everyone was to follow the same mold, then we wouldn't have great art. We just would have copies of one another, or the same form basically.
yeah, I agree. So, where are we finally getting at?
So to come to the end of this discussion, I would just like to say that for me personally, I would not be able to separate the art from the artist. Like in my everyday life, if I do not like a person, I'm pretty sure I won't be able to enjoy
Yeah.
his art. I would appreciate his art. I would appreciate that he or she did good stuff. But that stuff was not like didn't fit with me basically.
Yeah.
And that's where I come down to, like, if to say that can I separate the art from the artist, I would say no.
Yeah, if I think of it, I can personally judge the art separately from the artist, but there's a situation that you cannot appreciate without understanding the person and his motives. So I completely understand your point, and also there's that why should I appreciate this person's work? There's also this situation, but you can appreciate in some cases, like because you appreciated before it came out. So I think there's a limit to everything, and there's a middle ground. Like you cannot completely separate the art from the artist, but there are situations where you can let go the person,
Yeah,
especially
you
in
should,
cases
like, give time
yeah.
to people to change themselves, and like I'm not saying that there shouldn't be any consequences. There should be definitely be consequences. They should definitely be held accountable, but they should be given at least a chance or two to, like, pay the price,
Yeah.
basically, and like reform themselves. Yeah.
And I also think that if you're, as a consumer, that you think that 10 years ago you boycotted someone, right? And he or she is making a comeback as a, like, that I am changed, and if you like, you can appreciate it. So give them a chance and check it out, like Guardians Volume 3. If you're up to it, we are just suggesting. It's completely up to you, and you can let us know in the comments whatever you think about the situation. But for us, I think I would give the movie a chance, because I really like James's work, and I think that just because he tweeted something like 10 years ago, that wouldn't affect what I see on screen, because he has been better, and I know that he has been better since then.
Okay. So to summarize the entire conversation, there is reasons why you cannot separate the art from the artist, and there are reasons why you can and should separate the art from the artist. And both of these arguments are reasonably compelling. So we
Yeah.
just took this topic up, and it might
It's
not.
open to interpretation, however
Yeah,
you
it's
want
open to
it.
interpretation. And we know that it's a really vague and philosophical topic, and we didn't
Hmm.
actually reach to a conclusion in this, or a resolution in this
Yeah.
podcast episode. But we would love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your viewpoints and what you think about the situation, and can you separate the art from the
Yeah.
artist? Reach out to us in the comments, on our Twitter, on our Instagram at the Spitballing
Yeah.
Podcast. And yeah, like, share, and subscribe if you like this episode. Also, check out our other 2 episodes where we talk about Endgame and our
our
experience
board.
giving the boards.
Yeah.
Peace.
See you next episode.